Hello everybody, Fast Hippie here today. We're looking at another Argent Arena match between Linne playing NPC, Hikaru, and Andyman playing Marmelee. This is I think round 4 of the losers bracket, maybe round 5. So loser is out of the tournament and winner continues on. So this will be a exciting one up to the end here. Hikaru plays one of his most common starting attacks here, which is Geometric Drive. Geometric Drive gives Linne a huge number of options. She can get the range, or the extra power, or extra stun guard, all depending on what she needs to do. Andy actually plays the perfect counter here, which is Nullifying Grasp. But the reason this is the perfect counter is that it actually outspeeds Geometric Drive, and even if Linne antis the stun guard like she does, Grasp allows Andyman to push Hikaru back one, and now he can't hit back with the drive. So Nullifying Grasp actually ends up being the perfect counter, and probably was the call. Andyman saw the Geometric Drive coming, and that was probably his call. If Linne had done Geometric Shot here, Andyman would have gotten punished pretty hard, I think, because Linne would have been able to use Geometric to play the power, because the stun guard from Shot would have made it so the Grasp didn't stun him, and would have been able to pay off really hard that beat. But that's just how things go. So now we move into beat 2. And Linne plays Trance Dodge. This is a pretty sensible move here to get his counters back. The only problem I have with Trance Dodge is you're dodging against Marmelee. As it turns out, they were both dodging, so it's probably fine. But typically with Marmelee, you want to keep that pressure on as much as you can, beat after beat, because Marmelee is a character that as time stretches on, she's able to get more counters, and as she gets more counters, she's able to get more options. So you really want to constantly pressuring Marmelee as much as you can whenever you can. And Trance Dodge allows her to get a free beat. So dodge is okay. I'm not saying you should never dodge against Marmelee, but you should probably always keep that pressure on as much as you can. So now we're moving into beat 3. And we'll see what happens here. Advancing Shot. So Advancing Shot is a move that Linne's playing, mostly focusing on ensuring that she has the range. The hope here is you'll have enough board coverage that you should be able to hit Marmelee no matter what. And by anteing the soak token, you'll be able to trade well here. Essentially taking very little damage. As it turns out, they end up clashing, and they end up both playing Burst. So the reason I think Linne played with Burst here was again to try to continue to have a reasonable range here, to have good board coverage. But since Andyman actually countered with Burst of his own, Andyman is able to have a 2-4 burst against Linne's 2-3 burst, and so it ends up being a lost beat by Linne. But saying that, the soak token actually makes it so Linne takes no damage, so it ends up being a null beat. But null beats are good for Marmelee, so I guess Marmelee won. I don't know. So we are moving into beat 4, and Hikaru is getting his Geomantic back, and so because he has Geomantic back, he's probably playing Geomantic, and there it is, Geomantic Shot. Geomantic Shot is really, again, Geomantic gives you the ability to react to what's going on. You can ante the additional range if you need the range, additional power if you need the power, and so on. As it is, he antes the range here, to try to get a 0 to 5. And Andyman again calls Geomantic. This time he plays a Magnificent Drive. And Magnificent Drive ends up being a very powerful option here because he has the 5 tokens. He's able to ante as many tokens as he needs to stun his opponent, so he antes just enough to deal 5 damage over the 4 stun guard and hit and stun Linne before Linne is able to strike back with Geomantic Shot. So we are now moving into beat 5, and typical to Marmelee, not a lot has happened. 5 beats have passed, and only one person has really been dealt any damage, and the game is just kind of stretching on. If Andyman is able to maintain this pace of stretching the game out, then Andyman will be in a good position for winning this game in the long run. So Linne plays Trance Dodge again. In this case, I think it's a good move to play here because it's allowing Linne to reposition to get closer to her opponent, which is good considering that Hikaru I think wants to be fighting at close range, where Marmelee likes that middle to long range, and so I think this is good, and you're getting the token back. So at this point, I think the dodge makes sense. It's kind of a necessary evil. Again, I don't really like dodging against Marmelee, but sometimes you just have to get that good positioning. And in Hikaru's case, you're also doing it to get that token back with Trance. So I think it was kind of almost forced on him. So we're moving on to beat 6, and he plays Advancing Strike here. This is a really good move because advancing gives you that start beat advance 1, so it allows you to kind of corner yourself, making yourself safe against a variety of moves, such as drives and such as dodges. But as it turns out, his opponent is going to play Petrifying Shot here. Now, the problem for Andyman here is that his opponent has both the speed and the stun guard, which means that Petrifying Shot, in order to win this beat, requires Andyman to ante 3 for the speed and 2 for the stun guard. So, although Andyman won this beat, Andyman had to ante a ton of resources to do it, and is out of resources. And because Hikaru played their soak token here, he only took 1 damage and was able to get rid of all of Marmelee's tokens. So this was actually a huge win for Hikaru, even though Hikaru lost 1-0 in the damage race. And so now we're moving into beat 7, and Hikaru is yet to deal damage to Marmelee at all. But Marmelee is much more constrained at this point, only having 1 token. And so we'll see what Linne can do here to try to catch up. And so Linne plays Geomantic Drive here, and also antes the fire token. I don't know if you need to ante the fire token here. Because you were playing Geomantic, you might have been able to hold on to it and ante it depending on what your opponent flips over. That was probably the safer move, because again, Geomantic, I think ante the priority doesn't do anything, because you already check priority before the starter beat happens, so it was likely best to just hold on to the fire token. As it turns out, Linne would have anteed the fire token anyway, because by doing so, Linne was able to stun even through the stun guard 7 strike and get rid of Andyman's tokens and win a huge beat. So this is the first time Linne has been able to deal damage this whole game, and in 1 attack, Linne has actually caught up to 7 beats of Marmelee. And so I think this kind of points out one of the things that I've learned with playing some Marmelee is Marmelee can get dead beats, but Marmelee generally doesn't hit very hard. This means you need to be a little bit more aggressive with Marmelee in terms of anteing for power whenever you're going to win those beats, whenever you can get those free beats using something like barrier or petrifying. Because every extra damage is very important for Marmelee, because she seems to be somewhat constrained in the amount of damage she can do, just because her styles don't have the large payout, such as Hikaru, who could just hit for an additional 3. But that's I mean, that's kind of unique to Hikaru. But anyway, so Linne uses Trance Palm Strike here, and even though Hikaru misses, Trance allows Hikaru to gain the token back. So Linne chooses to gain the range token, which somewhat makes sense considering that Marmelee kind of put herself at range, and so Hikaru is just kind of trying to be able to still pay off even while fighting at range. And immediately Linne pays off that range token because Marmelee is at range. Hikaru is able to use the token he just gained to continue to put the pressure on Marmelee, which is very important because Marmelee, if Marmelee isn't under pressure constantly, she is able to she's able to continue to gain tokens and get those powerful effects. So by putting the range here, Hikaru is able to continue to pressure Marmelee to use her tokens aggressively, which is in your favor. As it is, this ends up being a very great move for Linne, because even when Marmelee spends all of their tokens, they're unable to stun Hikaru, and Hikaru is able to pay back. So using this range token and getting the range token was a very powerful option here, because you were able to get full board coverage and continue to put that pressure on Marmelee beat after beat. So we are now moving into beat 10, and the game is still pretty close. It's 10 to 8, but Marmelee is starting back at 1 concentration token again. So even though the life tokens are close, their resources are pretty low for both players. Marmelee is low because she only has 1 concentration, and Hikaru is low because he only has one of his elemental tokens. So the game is actually pretty close. I was actually pretty surprised by Petrifying Meditation here, because I find Meditation to be one of Marmelee's best styles, and I would usually hold on to it unless you're paying off. And because your opponent was so far away, I think playing Shot would have been very smart here to make it so that Hikaru couldn't safely advance. But as it is, Marmelee is able to gain 2 tokens here from Meditation, and a lot of her options will now open up because she'll have the additional tokens. But again, perhaps playing something like Switch Meditation would have been better here, just to gain resources if this was intended to be just a resource gaining turn. As it was, I wasn't really sure what Meditation, Petrifying Meditation was aiming to be. Perhaps it was a trying to clash out a move. So Trance Strike is actually a pretty good move here, because Trance gives you that additional range, and Strength lets you trade well if you take the damage. But they actually clash here, and this clash ends up being just devastating for Marmelee here. Marmelee ends up playing Switch Grasp and misses, and Hikaru plays Trance Burst here and is able to just get a free beat. So yeah, perhaps Andy could have done something with range, but I don't know what options he had at this point. And so that clash actually put him in a pretty scary position, and Linne was able to play just the right move to beat him. It was kind of a 50-50, because if Marmelee would have went for something like Shot, Hikaru could have went for something like Drive and countered it. So Andyman in this case was in a pretty difficult position and had a difficult decision to make. So we are now moving into beat 12, And Hikaru is going to play Geomantic Shot here. Again, playing that Geomantic as much as they can. And again, Geomantic is one of Hikaru's most powerful styles because of its flexibility. And as it turns out, his opponent plays Sorcerer's Dodge, which ends up being a clash. And so then they go into the secondary attack, and Hikaru is able to play a drive that is slightly faster than their opponent's drive. And so, as I've said in many of these tournament games, the worst thing you can do is play a slightly slower drive, because you don't have that stun guard. Your opponent is able to close in on you and stun you out before you're able to strike back. So, as it turns out, Linne is able to win this game through excellent play and excellent management of Hikaru's tokens, even though the first 7 beats Marmelee was able to dominate this game. Hikaru was able to, with his very powerful tokens, catch up very quickly and actually go from, I think it was like 20 to 10 or 20 to 13 or something, and come back and win in just 5 beats. So it was an excellent game, and I hope you enjoyed watching it, and I hope you learned a little bit about Marmelee and Hikaru watching this game, and I hope we continue to get better. Take it easy, everybody. Bye.